Hey guys, Paul here. So today we're going to be doing something special. We're going to be taking you step by step on how I would go about painting a battle-ready Space Marine. But this is going to be special. This is going to be a Chaos Space Marine. I'm going to be painting the guy in the middle and in Emperor's Children colors. So a lot of, I guess, 40k Emperor's Children. So silvers, a lot of purples, maybe some pinks in there. But do keep in mind, this is going to be a long form video. I'm just going to be going through the motions, painting it as how I would, not parade ready, not like, you know, I'm going to be doing a lot of weathering or anything to make it look really good, but just like imagine I'm army painting for a game on the weekend and I'm on a rush. I only have a couple hours every day to do these paintings, right? So that's how I would do it, and I can only spend so much time on one mini, right? And this is going to be a lore dump episode. If you're not familiar with Warhammer, while I'm building and painting, I'm going to be talking about just the lore, just to get you up to speed, because you're like, what's a Space Marine? Who the heck's the Emperor's Children? What's his children's names, you know? And what the heck's going on in Warhammer. So while I'm building and painting, I'm going to get you guys up to speed. So with that being said, bring out like popcorn or eat while listening or watching me build and paint. So you guys know a little bit more about Warhammer lore if you're not caught up with Warhammer. So while I'm building and painting, I'm going to be running through the lore as to what makes Fulgrim and his Emperor's Children special. Actually, just a little bit of a background with Warhammer in general, if you're not familiar. Just like a TLDR, right, for the lore, if you're never really interested, but you're curious as to why this crazy dude wants to keep talking about Warhammer. Yeah, I'm talking about me. It's a love-hate relationship with Games Workshop. You guys are familiar with Star Trek, right? And maybe even Star Wars. Yeah, so Warhammer used to be more of a nicer place like that. So, you know, Warhammer, and specifically the Imperium or humanity, they did originate from Earth, and from the year 2000 all the way to the 15th millennia. So 21st century to the 15th millennia, they experienced what is essentially a golden age of exploration, specifically space exploration. They had technology that looked like magic. It was ridiculous. It was so good. And, you know, this is when they began experimenting with AI. But it hasn't fully come to fruition yet. But then comes the years 15,000 to 25,000, known as the Age of Technology or the Dark Age of Technology. But yeah, it's more commonly referred to as that. And that's basically when their technology came to fruition. Humanity's technology, I mean. That's when they truly, it looked like, I would say, you know, the Thor movies, how Asgard was a mix of science and magic. Yeah, that's what humanity looked like. Beyond what Star Trek, the Federation is even capable of, if you're familiar with Star Trek like that. So they were cooking, and it was peaceful. But unfortunately, humanity was not the only thing in the universe. Hell is very much real in Warhammer. Now, I'm not talking about you know, hell not being real in real life, by the way. I'm talking about like hell exists within the universe of Warhammer. It's called the Warp. And if you are very psychically gifted, you are known as a psyker, but you get your powers from that warp, from hell. You get your like lightning hands, you know, you want to be Emperor Palpatine. Instead of the Force, you get it from the Warp. And with hell being a thing called the Warp, naturally there are things lurking within that kinda, I guess now, because of how bloated the Warp has become with all the wars, you know, they have become extremely powerful. The Warp used to just be a thing. It wasn't necessarily hell. It was just a place where people go and die. I guess it was the afterlife. But now the Warp has been corrupted due to the bloat and just the constant war that's been going on for the past millions of years in the Warhammer universe. So now anything can be conjured, demons, right? And again, I told about the beings that reside in the warp. Well, yeah, they're kind of referred to as the three chaos gods by the people in the Warhammer universe. That would be Khorne, god of murder, slaughter, and blood. That's where the term blood for the blood god comes from. If you've ever heard that term, that is for Khorne. He doesn't care where blood flows. So it doesn't matter if it comes from his minions. It doesn't matter if it came from some household dispute from a random house fight. It doesn't matter if it's a war from way yonder. It doesn't matter. So long as the blood flows, he gains power and he is satisfied. And then we have god of rot, Nurgle. Yeah, Nurgle, that's his name. He is the end of everything. But yet, because he is very bloated, he also can be symbolized as life as well, the corrupted life, but still life. He often resurrects things from the dead and gives them a makeover, so corrupted life. And by the makeover, I mean pus and diseased and rot and decay, right? So he has a lot of that going on. And then the third is Tzeentch, god of change, deception, right? Always a planner and a schemer. And often he will look like he lost a battle, but turns out it was all according to his plan. So he's that guy, very conniving and scheming, unlikable in some way, shape, or form. Also likes birds quite a bit. Quite a few of his models have feathers and scales. Well, birds and fish, but mostly birds. So yeah, those are the three quote-unquote gods. They're really just powerful beings. They're not really gods because there's quite a few limits to their powers. They can't, for example, enter the three beings can't, for example, enter real space or the space beyond the warp, which is just the real world. They need conduits and they need to work through others. I'm pretty sure in the 30 years plus of Warhammer lore, those three have never entered real space because they can't. They are physically tied to the warp unless portals and again anchors in the real world are established, and a lot of them, then maybe they can enter. But there's a lot of limitations. They're just really powerful beings. They're not really gods. So what does that have to do with humanity's fall? Well, actually, it's because humanity, well, first of all, you need the warp to enter faster than light travel. I mean, there's no real faster than light. There's various ways, but generally, most interstellar species, travel faster than light speeds throughout the galaxy by entering the warp. It's a shortcut, essentially. And it's a parallel dimension to our own. It is also a shortcut that ships use. But yeah, the downside is you are entering what is essentially Warhammer hell, which is rough. So the one thing I never mentioned about the warp is that they, it's connected to every single individual being in the mind. So you don't just go there to die. Your thoughts and emotions are projected into the warp. It is the place of all things, right? And it is, your thoughts, again, your every single thought and emotion go there. And again, if you're more psychically gifted, your projections into the warp are more powerful. And again, the Eldar are a very psychically gifted and powerful race. Their average psychers are, on average, more powerful than the average human psyker, and there's a lot more of them, psyker number-wise, in Eldar populations rather than humanities, though I think it's starting to even out in the modern day. Anyway, so in their peak, quite a few of their populaces are filled with, psychers, which may seem good and powerful, but when your entire species is engaging in debauchery, which is then psychically projected into the warp, naturally and psychically, because again, every thought and emotion is placed in the warp, right? And then the projections happen to be psychically projected as well. Yeah, it is amplified to the nth degree, because remember, this is millennia of debauchery. The art, sex, pleasure became deranged. Murder became a thing, combined with the art, pleasure, sex. Every single thing of that, they became more and more deranged, right? And this is projected throughout hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of years, because that's how long the Eldar have ruled the galaxy. And then out of nowhere, just a fourth chaos god came into existence and killed, upon that birth, killed 90% of the Eldar population. The fourth chaos god being Slaanesh, the prince of pleasure, god of excess, emotion, perfection, joy, happiness, sadness, and she who thirsts, as being referred to by the Eldar. Yeah, she, upon her birth, killed the Eldar population wholesale. They just liquefied, got eaten by demons on the spot upon her birth. It was rough. So it is that event that led to the direct fall of humanity, the fall of the Empire, but then the rise of the Imperium. Because, right, the death of Slaanesh initially kind of cleared the warp. Because the warp is unstable ever since the Chaos Gods took over the warp, from just being energy where people go and die, after they die, sorry, to now being a realm of chaos, the warp, and it is dangerous, and realm of demons. So it kind of cleared the warp. The death of Slaanesh did. Obviously, trillions of Eldar died, their empire fell, but it was kind of like a great big sneeze, or maybe it's more comparable to a great big orgasm. It is a Slaanesh, after all, the god of excess, sex, pleasure, right? So I think that's more appropriate. Yeah, so it initially cleared the warp, but the aftershocks were catastrophic for humanity. Basically, faster than light travel was cut off galaxy-wide because of the aftershocks in the warp. Because they got cut off from the warp, thousands of planets are just in ruins, especially human planets that relied on the warp for trade, for all these things, for immigration, right? If you're a mining planet, right, or maybe an agriculture planet that can't really mine or can't defend itself from pirates or whatnot, or demon attacks from the warp, or again, the mining planet but can't really produce food, and then you relied on warp for trade, yeah, your planet just kind of fell and died. So a lot of things relied on the warp for humanity, and this is not just like a couple years where this persisted. This is 5,000 years of pain and torture for humanity, because this is also when their magnificent AI machines started rebelling. Yeah, it's very Dune, this part here. In fact, a lot of Warhammer is Dune inspired, so some people say outright copied. So this is where the AI rebellion took place. So amongst all the chaos already happening in the galaxy, with the warp being cut off, trade being cut off, defense for a lot of its colonies, for Earth's colonies, or Terra as it's known, were cut off. Yeah, it is sad, and this is 5,000 years. So from the years 25,000 to 30,000, or the 25th millennia to the 30th millennia. Just, this is called the Age of Strife, and it is appropriate. I'm just being reckless with the primer, by the way, because he's supposed to be dirty and grungy, and I don't really care. This is not going to be like a heavy metal kind of perfection looking thing. I'm just looking to do a quick paint job. This is when the humanity that we know more closely associated with kind of started to form, right? So with AI rebellions being a thing, computers have now largely been outlawed. What they do now is lobotomize slaves, because they do have slaves in this universe, of course. Or I guess it was more progressive, but because of the Age of Strife, slavery became more and more used. And sometimes they would lobotomize their slaves and then kind of plug them in as organic computers. That's right. You know, the Matrix with the organic batteries? Like that. So they would use servitors for batteries, for computations. Yeah, it's rough. Or just general servants, really. If you want them to serve drinks, right? You have a servitor come and give it to you, whose one purpose is to just serve you drinks, protect you, defend you. But they are lobotomized humans. Yes, that is our cup that we use to paint. We should really clean it. But I can assure you that it is clean water and every paint there is dry. So, plus I'm not really expecting it to be Golden Demon level, which is the highest I guess painting award you can earn if you're a Warhammer painter, I guess. Internationally recognized anyway. So this is the paint scheme I'm going to be going for to keep it in line more with 40K standards, because this is what one of the I guess the HQs or officers will look like in the up and coming Emperors or Champions of Slaanesh box for the Emperor's Children. So yeah, you can see there's lots of black. That's why I primed it black. Lots of dull silvers and with a hint of purple on it. There's the human flayed skin. So it's around 29,000 when this figure, known only as the Emperor of Mankind, appeared. Where did he come from? Like, we genuinely have maybe just old lore, nothing really concrete as of the modern day, and the old lore may or may not have been retconned already. So genuinely, we don't really know. But all we know is that he is, 10, 12 feet tall, but with his immense psychic powers, literally the most powerful psyker to have ever existed and will ever exist. Yeah, his psychic powers are considerable. He can alter his size quite literally. His faces change depending on who he's talking to. His, I think, gender can change as well. There are some reports where they've seen the Emperor appear as a human, a female human. So yeah, it's his psychic powers are immense. Even, I mean, obviously the most powerful psychic in the human space and in humanity in general. But even when compared to the Eldar, I think he's more powerful than even all of them. I don't think he is more powerful than the Chaos Gods, all four of them. But they can't really do anything to him because he's just that strong, and also because he's in real space, not in the warp. So why did the Emperor just choose this moment, tail end of the Age of Strife, to appear? We genuinely don't know. All we know is that a 10 to 12 feet tall psychic monster of a human being arrived out of nowhere, who's immortal, by the way, called a perpetual, who's been observing humanity for thousands, millennia, finally just decided to show up. And it's like, you know what? It's time to make my move. And his first move was to reunite Earth, because during the Age of Strife, humanity essentially nuked itself on Earth anyway to oblivion. And it is now a radioactive wasteland with, they're called techno-barbarian tribes. Kind of so Mad Max, but with more tech. On Earth. So the Emperor made super soldiers called Thunder Warriors, and his elite guard called the Custodian Guard, or the Custodes, and he used them to reunite Terra, which is Earth, but it's called Terra in Warhammer. So yeah, and once his conquest of Earth and his reunification of Earth, or Terra, is complete, he did something that will change the galaxy for years to come. And honestly, this part of the lore is why Warhammer is, to this day, one of the most beloved things, and probably a genius from a writing perspective. He made Primarchs, or his sons. 20 of them, though 2 of them will be lost to the annals of history forever, just erased from history. So who knows what those 2 Primarchs did or what happened to them. So 18 officially Primarchs, sons of the emperor, right? He made 18 of them, and they are mini him. So mini and not in size, though some are smaller than others. So some are still 14 feet tall, which on average should be taller than the emperor himself. But what I say by mini is that they're not as powerful as him. So if the emperor can lift 100 tons in just pure physical strength, which he can, I think, though there's no outright confirmation because he's that physically and psychically powerful, his sons could probably do 80 tons. And I'm pretty sure I'm lowballing the Primarchs and the emperor as well. He's basically a walking nuke, psychic nuke. And his sons, not as powerful, but they're all extremely strong, and they're like gifted in different ways. The unfortunate thing about the Primarchs is that while they were still babies and gestating, right, so they were like infants, literally infants, weeks old, the Chaos Gods interfered and sent them away, or threw them across the galaxy to the, and a lot of them, actually all of them, just miraculously landed on the lost colonies of humanity during the Age of Strife. Sorry, I can't talk. Because again, remember, they got cut off from each other, so they're technically all lost. So the only unified human world was Earth, or Terra, because it was unified by the Emperor with blood. So this became then known as the Great Crusade, because the Emperor obviously had to get his sons back, but he still had their genes, because if you guys don't know, the Primarchs were not made, you know, with the usual way you would make a son, but it is made, or they are made, with warp magic and genetic just tomfoolery, because they're that strong. They are 18 essentially, like, I wouldn't say exact copies, but they are very powerful people derived from the Emperor's own blood, and that's the strongest human to ever exist, so, and will ever exist. So you need to be careful with their upbringing, but the Chaos Gods just interfered, though it is widely debated why they just randomly landed on 18 different human planets when they could have landed on some barren moon and the child would have just died due to lack of sustenance and oxygen. Though I'm pretty sure Primarchs can eat anything due to their genetic upbringing, but still, they would have died as a child, more likely anyway. Hey, I interrupt this lore dump just so I can tell you guys that we have hit 50K on TikTok. As again, our goals have been met, at least initially. Obviously, the next goal is 100K, but the next big milestone for us would be 10K on YouTube. So subscribe to us if you haven't yet. Make sure to like and subscribe, of course. Follow us on all our social media platforms. Be nice, be kind. We are learning as we go along. And yeah, follow for more. So the Great Crusade wasn't just about reuniting Earth with her colonies, but also a game, or not a, oh, I guess the Chaos Gods treated it as a game, but it is a way to get his sons back. But he can't do it alone. The Emperor, despite how powerful he is, can't do it alone. So what he did was he had the genes of his sons still in storage, because of course he does. They are made from genetic material from him and warp magic and all that stuff. And he used the genes to create something called a gene seed, and then he implanted that onto willing recruits, or sometimes even unwilling, and then they became known as the Space Marines. So think of the Emperor as the dad or the granddad, the Primarchs as the dads, and then the Space Marines as their sons. So it's like that meme. It's like, oh, your leaders are just taller people, or whatever that meme is. It's just, they're just bigger and bigger. So yeah, that's basically it. If you know, the Emperor is 14 feet tall, some of his sons are 12 feet, and then the Space Marines are 7 feet. You know, Space Marines being created with the genes of their Primarch fathers. The Emperor has commenced the Great Crusade to reunite the galaxy under human rule, but also to reunite himself with his sons. I just noticed that there are no Emperor's Children or Slaanesh colors here. Makes sense, this is an older box. So yeah, that's the goal. And the Emperor's Children, basically, there are 18 legions of Space Marines, one per Primarch. So 18 Primarchs, 18 legions, right? 18 dads, and then, you know, legions of sons, right? So Fulgrim is a Primarch, and his legion is called the Emperor's Children. They are the 3rd legion, and they painted their armor pink, purple, and gold. Gold trimmings, purple armor, sometimes pink hues, right? And his shtick is that he is a perfectionist. That is his thing. Each Primarch has a shtick. Magnus the Red, he commands these guys. No, not what. Wow, they don't have Cinchin guys here. Anyway, yeah, he has a bunch of sorcerers. And he is almost as powerful as the Emperor himself. Fulgrim's shtick is that he is a perfectionist in all things: art, culture, war. So that then gets inherited by his sons via the gene seed. That's what the gene seed is. It is implanted to teenagers, young adults, and then they grow up to become Space Marines, and then they live to be superhumanly strong. They don't really age, or they age, but like they don't die till like a millennia from now, essentially, because of their implanted genes from their father, right? So one by one during the Great Crusade, his children were found there, and then they started colonizing and reuniting humanity and killing anything and everyone that isn't human. Yeah, that's what the Imperium is, and they, you know, kill everything, including the demons of the warp. But the warp, again, right? There's the 4 chaos gods there. They have other plans, so they start manipulating one of the Primarchs called Horus. Now that may sound familiar, because there's an entire series about Horus and what he did called the Horus Heresy. So 200 years after the start of the Great Crusade, obviously the Primarchs have been all found and reunited. They are now grown up. This is 200 plus years, right? And again, the Primarchs are functionally immortal, just like their dad. They don't really age. They will not die of old age. They can die on the battlefield, but they will not die of old age. So yeah, thousands of years, but this is only 200 years into their lives. And yeah, they, you know, start getting manipulated one by one, but it started kinda with Horus. I'm just keeping it vague. It didn't really start with Horus, but you get what I mean. So yeah, that's when things went terrible for the Imperium 200 plus years afterwards, because Horus was named War Master, and he felt like with the manipulation spurred on by the Chaos Gods that he was abandoned by the Emperor, because he got left with the responsibility of continuing the Great Crusade while the Emperor did something else back on Earth or Terra, and he felt abandoned, and he was used by the Chaos God with manipulate. It's very much like the Anakin turn, but in a different kind of twist. And he was manipulated, and he then manipulated 7 of his brothers. No, 8. Sorry, yeah, 9 of the 18 turned. So him plus 8 others. So one of them was Fulgrim, which again, Fulgrim is the Primarch of the Emperor's Children. And in the Emperor's Children's pursuit of decadence and perfection, they fell to the god of sex, pleasure, known as Slaanesh. That's why they are now evil. And Fulgrim, you look at the the past picture before the Horus Heresy began to now, he is now transformed into a demon Primarch, a snake man, a massive, gigantic snake man with 4 arms. That's what Fulgrim is now, unfortunately. It looks gorgeous though. You see the models for both Horus Heresy just immediately after he transformed till the 40k 10,000 years after the Horus Heresy. Yeah, he looks insane. Some might say gorgeous. And that's what Fulgrim is. He seeks beauty in all things. He is emphatically, I guess, gorgeous. So that's why the Imperium not the Imperium, but the Horus Heresy. That's why it's so tragic, because it's brother against brother. Eventually, the civil war reached Earth itself, or Terra. This is where Horus faced down the Emperor. Not the again, Horus, despite being physically powerful, you know, he is a great leader, charismatic, the favorite son, right? He was named War Master after the, you know, the Emperor left the Crusade. Despite all that, he had no psychic powers of any kind. He is not a psyker. So to kind of amend this, the psychic powers of the Chaos Gods themselves was kind of percentage-wise transferred to Horus. He wasn't given all their power, but he, with the combined might of the four, he not only surpassed, you know, matched the Emperor, but surpassed him in some ways, shape, or form in psychic might and physical might, which is then amplified by his, you know, psychic might. Anyway, so he brought down the hammer on Earth, and it was bad. Billions of traitors on Earth. And he faced the Emperor. He dies, though. Horus dies. Emperor kills him, kills his favorite son, but not before brutally, like, wounding the Emperor, mortally wounding him. So now the Emperor is stuck on a golden throne, basically like life support system, and he is dying of his wounds unless 1,000 psychers are sacrificed to him every single day. Now I think in the modern day it is now 4,000 psychers every single day. It is rough. So lore-wise, you're caught up. That's it, right? There's plenty more to go, of course, but TLDR-wise, you're caught up. So where do you go from here? I recommend Horus Heresy. There's 64 books in the Horus Heresy line and franchise. It is a franchise because it's 30k versus 40k. And the first book, Horus Rising, is where you should start in the Horus Heresy, and honestly all of Warhammer. It is a great introductory beginner Warhammer book, an easy read, fantastic read, honestly a masterpiece of a book. It's incredible, and that's where I would recommend you begin your Warhammer journey. Tells the tale of Horus's rise to power and how it came to be, and then you kind of slowly realize, like, I'm getting Anakin vibes here. But yeah, there's 64 books. The first 5 books of Horus Rising, I believe it's called False Gods, Galaxy in Flames, The Flight of the Eisenstein, and Fulgrim. Those are the first 5 books. Fulgrim in particular I really enjoyed because I'm a Horus, Emperor's Children enjoyer. I'm a degenerate. So the first 5 books you enjoy and read timeline-wise. Those are you cannot skip. You can't skip. But then afterwards, 64 books, nobody's got time for that. You jump around. Okay, you jump around till the end. And then it's called the Siege of Terra books. That's when you kind of lock in and then read them in order. But otherwise, in between, after the first 5 books and the last 10 or so, that's when you jump around. So he's turning out great. My only concern is the fact that his face isn't really, it's not turning out well. And I am notorious for not being able to paint faces, but this is just ridiculous. And I think it's because I primed the face black, and I am using contrast paint. So that may be the reason, but who knows. So I may just paint the face white and then use a contrast paint on top, but we'll see. Overall, he's turning out great. Now, he is turning out great, as previously mentioned, but the face, yeah, he looks like, what's that orc's name in Lord of the Rings? The one's like, the one based on Harvey Weinstein. I was gonna make an orc impression, but the one based on Harvey Weinstein, that thing has a name. Maybe I just call this guy Harvey Weinstein. Anyway, yeah, I still cannot gauge how to paint faces. I still move into it when it's wet. Every single thing I can gauge properly dryness wise, but faces I can't. So the primer came off there. It's really, really annoying. But otherwise, the armor's turning out great. And this is probably going to be the pinkish red that I'm going to be using for the Emperor's Children, my personal color scheme for the Emperor's Children when the box comes out. Is it a little bit more red than normal? Yes. Yes, it is. I would have liked it to be a little bit more pinkish white, maybe even hovering on purple. And it does look like he's a 40k word bearer instead. But you know, it is what it is. By the way, to keep things really shiny silver-wise, I'm using Runefang steel. Okay. So yeah, I'm just using Runefang steel to do highlights like that. And again, surprise, surprise, I cannot paint a face. I don't know what it is. I gotta get my act together. This is me redoing his primer, putting on the thinned down contrast paint on it. Just I can't paint faces. Sorry. Granted, he is a Chaos Marine, so he looks like a goober, really. I'm gonna finish this mini off because I give up with the face with these two. Aster Granite on the base and then snow on top of the Aster Granite. You know what? I didn't give myself enough credit. This turned out fine. Wow. Yeah, including the face. When I filmed, it was drying, but it hasn't dried. So now that it has dried, not bad. Now, granted, this is not the best. I did have to improvise a little bit, and I didn't have my usual paint brushes that I'm used to and the paints that I'm used to, but still, within just an hour or two, yeah, this was not bad. And we all have tufts here, from what I can tell. But you know what? I was gonna add tufts here on the snow, like dead tufts, to symbolize like the wasteland that he's on. But this is pretty good. It's not bad at all. Hey, so he turned out better than expected. Is he the best? Not even remotely close. But for the couple hours that I have, and maybe like the pressures of maybe getting it done fast in a workplace, this is not bad. I would have liked to maybe get my, faces correct, but honestly, it didn't turn out that bad. I would paint the hair, but I'm lacking a little bit of a beige right now to get him more like a blonde look. I wanted him blonde, but otherwise, yeah. This is going to be maybe a similar color scheme to what I'm going to be painting my Emperor's Children when the box finally arrives. And hopefully you learned a little bit about Warhammer lore. It is very complicated. I gave you guys a TLDR. If you guys stayed, let me just unlock the focus here. If you guys stayed for the entire thing or partially, thank you. If you guys stayed all the way to the end of the video, thank you. Follow us on social media. Thank you guys for being patient with me. And I will see you guys when Emperor's Children drops. I may do a little bit of other reviews here and there, maybe 2 more videos before that box drops, okay? But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.